or share the recording with others who were not able to join today. We'll post the recording onto the website. So as a matter of housekeeping, let me just share the website with you. Karen's posted it in the chat box for you. All of the materials that we refer to today are posted here on our website, DelawareStudentSuccess.org, and you want to do /DSS-collaborative / and that will allow you to be able to access the application, the presentation from today, and all of the information that you need. Hold on one second. I'm just going to mute the call so that you're able to hear. If you have questions, please post them in the chat box. Karen is monitoring and will respond as we go through. So I'm going to start with our presentation. And so let me just... So the Delaware Student Success Collaborative came as a result of the work that we've done over the last 2 years in planning for the Gear Up application. As many of you know, we were applying to receive the federal grant from the U.S. Department of Education. We applied last year and this year, and both times, unfortunately, we did not receive the grant. But you guys put a lot of work into giving us feedback around what we thought would be a successful program, and so we want to move forward with doing the work and not continuing to put the effort on just the application. And so as a result, we have created the Delaware Student Success Collaborative. That collaborative will be funded through our College Access Fund, as well as our partners that were part of the Gear Up grant. And we are excited about the opportunity, and we think it actually will give us a lot more flexibility to do what we would like to do as a state that the federal grant would not have allowed us to do. So we wanted to connect this to the work that we're all doing with the Student Success Plan. So as you know, over the last year, we had significant changes to the Student Success Plan process. Districts were asked to submit for the first time a district-wide plan that provided information on how you are supporting students starting in 8th grade through the transition to post-secondary, and helping them to learn about what the opportunities are, how it connected to their strengths and their interests, and to build plans for themselves and set goals for life after high school for both education and career. And so the work that we will be doing through the collaborative will help to inform those plans, to strengthen them across the state, and ultimately create some best practices that we can scale statewide. And so the mission of the collaborative is to define a statewide culture that enables every student to both reach 12th grade with an informed career and educational plan, and to graduate with the knowledge and skills necessary to be successful in their next step beyond graduation. And that really, again, stems from the idea behind the role of the student success plans. Students over the course of middle school and high school should be exposed to numerous opportunities to learn about what's available and what the potential paths are, where they might want to start exploring, have the opportunity to go deeper in some areas, and ultimately enter 12th grade with a clear next step and the ability to transition into that next step, whether that is 4-year college, 2-year apprenticeship, military, whatever that next step is going to be for them based on their goals. And so the work will be focused on creating a culture that ensures every student enters 12th grade ready to do that. The objectives of the collaborative. We really have 2 focus areas. As we have had numerous conversations with all of you over the last few years, as we've reviewed the plans that everyone submitted, as we have talked with students and parents and tried to understand kind of the root causes of what some of our challenges are. One big challenge is that we know that we have students on different paths, many students who are preparing for college and many students who are preparing for career, but often when you have conversations with students, they're not connecting the dots between those two things. So if they are thinking about career, they may not understand the type of training or education that they need to prepare for that career. And even for our students who are preparing for college, they may not understand why they're going to college and how that is going to prepare them for their career. And so we want to really start to dig into what the assumptions are about how to prepare for college and career that lead to that, and disrupt it and change it and ensure that every single student has access to understand the training that they need and the career path that they're on and how those two things support one another rather than treating them as two separate things. So the work of the collaborative will be to understand what leads to that and how we can disrupt that pattern. The second objective is to, through the collaborative, create a group of stakeholders that is diverse and that is a strong learning community that is engaged in self-reflection, focused on strategic innovation and ways to scale best practices to accomplish that first objective and our mission ultimately. So the stakeholders will be a formalized learning community that will spend quite a lot of time together. It will be a mix of selected districts as well as community partners, including higher ed institutions and other organizations and DOE. And we really will commit to a transparent, honest conversation about how to affect change across the state. What will come out of the collaborative? The collaborative at the end, it is a 5-year commitment. We'll talk about that a little more in detail towards later in the presentation. But at the end of the collaborative, we hope that we will have identified the necessary practices and policies and supports that are needed to be able to accomplish the mission, that we've integrated them into the districts that are participating in the collaborative, and we've had an opportunity to evaluate them so that we understand how to scale them across the state. We hope that we will have provided professional development and coaching to not just the districts, but also to all of the community partners that are a part of the collaborative and working together to integrate those practices, because the practices we expect will not just be changes that need to happen in the districts that are participating, but also here at DOE as well as our community partners. And lastly, we hope that we will have evidence-based supports that will be provided for the students who are in the participating districts throughout the time that we are in the collaborative. So those are our key deliverables: identifying, integrating, and evaluating practices that can be scaled, providing professional development and coaching for all of those who are participating in the collaborative to be able to successfully integrate those practices, and then providing supports for students who are in the participating schools. And all of that is tied towards fulfilling the mission that we talked about in the beginning. So now for the who. Who is part of the collaborative? Through this process, and today is the start of that, we will be identifying in what we are naming innovation districts and charters. So we will have the opportunity for up to 8 districts and/or charters to participate. You will be asked to submit what we think is a fairly simple application. There's literally only 3 questions on the application, and we will be selecting based on that 8 districts. And so someone asked the question earlier, can K through 8 apply? The focus is middle school and high school. So if you are a high school only district or charter, if you are a middle school that has some version of 6 through 12 in your school, or if you are a comprehensive district and you want to identify a middle school and high school pair, any of those combinations are allowable to apply. And there are no restrictions around percentage of low income or certain types of demographics. What we're really looking for are districts and charters that are interested in diving into this conversation and doing the hard work with us to see what will happen. Someone just said that we lost the audio, so I just want to do a check to make sure that everyone else can still hear. So if I could just get, okay, thank you, Sam. All right. So Debbie, that might be something happening on your end. Thank you, everyone. So again, we're looking for districts and charters that want to do the work and really ask the questions. Laura, we don't have closed captioning, so we'll have to find another way to get that for you. To do the work. So then the community partners. Through the process of the Gear Up grant, there were a number of partners that were identified, and we will be continuing to include them as part of the collaborative. So all of our higher ed institutions will be joining us as part of this conversation. Obviously, they are essential to this work. Junior Achievement, Stand By Me, and Back to Basics will also be a part of that work. Also, we will be bringing in as a partner for the coaching and the professional development, the National Post-Secondary Strategy Institute. And then we'll have various representatives from the Higher Education Office, Exceptional Children, and Career and Technical Education Group from DOE.
Can a high school and middle school charter partner to apply? Yes.
So how will the collaborative work? It will be consistent of 3 key pieces. One is the working group, which I will go into more depth in the next few slides. The second are the innovation districts and charters. And the third is the professional development and student supports that will be provided throughout the course of participation. So those are kind of the 3 key aspects of the collaborative itself. So let's define the working group itself. So this is going to be considered year 1 starting in February of this school year. And the focus for year 1 will be to bring together that working group to really start to ask the hard questions, to understand what are the issues that lead to the patterns that we see, where are there opportunities to explore new practices, new policies, new supports to try and affect change for our students. And so that group will meet once a month from February through May, and then we will end in a 2-day workshop at the as connected to the Delaware Student Success Conference in June, where we will do a deep dive into the district post-secondary advisory plans and really thinking through how are we going to do the work that we have identified as a result of our monthly meetings. So those monthly meetings, we will be engaged in deep learning and conversation, bringing in partners to help us understand what the issues are, what the barriers are, and where there's opportunities for change. We will identify the changes that we want to start with, and then in June, the 2-day workshop will be used to talk about what's our plan and how are we going to start doing this work in the upcoming school year. And so the working group will consist of all of those individuals that I named before. I'll just go back so that you can see it in the collaborative. So everyone on this slide here, the innovation districts and charters, the community partners, which is the higher ed, junior achievement, Stand By Me, and Back to Basics, National Post-Secondary Strategy Institute, and DOE representatives, those are the members of the working group and will have representation in those monthly meetings. And so as you think about if you want to participate, we're wanting to make sure you have the details of what the ask will be so that you have a sense of what time commitment you'll need to be able to provide. And so after the first year, we'll end with the June 2-day workshop that will define our plan. For the remaining years of the collaborative, again, it's a 5-year collaborative, we will, so starting next school year through the 2023-24 school year, we will meet 4 to 6 times a year, depending on what the group feels is necessary, to check in on how the work is going, evaluate where there are issues and where there are additional challenges, assess if there's other things that we might need to spend time digging into to remove additional barriers, and really create an ongoing feedback loop and opportunity to learn from one another as we are implementing. And so that working group will have an ongoing conversation throughout those years for that purpose. So what is the Innovation District or Charter? As I said, these are districts and charters that are interested in really diving into this conversation, who are willing to serve as a place where we can pilot potential new practices and supports, and be willing to receive coaching to learn how to do that with fidelity, and then provide the feedback and serve as a learning ground for us to be able to see how do we scale this statewide and really create a system that will serve every student effectively in preparing for the transition from high school to post-secondary. And so we have funding for up to 8 districts or charters. That's and I'm saying districts or charters because we're expecting them to be either a middle school and high school pair and a comprehensive high school, or a charter that is a middle school and high school, serves all those grades, or a high school only charter or district. Someone asked on the chat, could you have 2 charters that pair together, one middle school charter and one high school charter? Absolutely. If one of the high school only districts, one of the VOTACs, wanted to do the same thing, that would absolutely be allowable. We are looking for as much diversity as we can in the pairs that we select, so that the group is reflective of the diversity of our state. And so as we look at how we go about putting this group together and selecting the 8, we are going to prioritize buy-in, ability to implement, and diversity. And diversity means type of school, location, size of school, resources within the school, as well as demographics, but really just trying to make sure that we have 8 districts and charters that reflect as much of the diversity of our state as we can, so that we can really understand what works in what type of environment. So I referenced that student supports is part of the work that will happen. So you may remember that from Gear Up, we had identified several supports that would be provided to students who were part of that program. We wanted to maintain some of those, and so through the partners that we had in state, we are still able to do that. And so Junior Achievement will be working with us to provide Career Fusion and Finance Park for students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And we know that many of you are already offering that to some of your students, so this may be an opportunity to scale it to students in your building who aren't able to participate, who haven't been able to participate, or you may have one or the other, and you can add that in. But the expectation would be that every participating district and charter would offer both, and that every student has the opportunity to participate in Career Fusion and Finance Park before they leave middle school. For the 9th and 10th graders, we will provide College Cash Careers workshops through Stand By Me. And so again, many of you have been offering that to portions of your students. And so this will allow you to be able to expand. If you've not yet integrated into your school, this will be an opportunity to do that. We feel like this was one of the things that was extremely popular from what we offered in Gear Up, and we thought that it was important to be able to provide those supports for students. And so unlike Gear Up, for those of you who may actually remember how that was structured, where it was a cohort model, we decided not to do the cohort model with this. And so instead, starting next year, students in all of those grades will have the opportunity to receive services. And so we will work with you to be able to coordinate that. One of the partners we mentioned is Back to Basics. They will be hiring 2 staff persons to support us across the state in coordinating the logistics and partnering with you to integrate the partners and the programs into your schools. And so they will help us with figuring that out. And then the second piece is the college tours. So our colleges had agreed to donate lunch to enable us to provide tours for all of our students, so that every student between 7th and 10th grade is able to participate in 2 college tours to a local Delaware college. We will still be able to do that. So we will provide the funding for the buses, and our colleges will provide the funding for lunches. So for the professional development supports, we will be working with the National Post-Secondary Strategy Institute that is led by Greg Darniter, who you may have heard that name before. He used to work at the U.S. Department of Education, and he's former superintendent, assistant superintendent from Chicago Public Schools, who led their post-secondary office there. And so that group focuses on providing coaching to districts across the country around developing post-secondary advisement plans. And so they will be providing coaching for us over the course of the collaborative, how to implement this work and integrate these changes. We will continue with the Delaware Student Success Conference. We held the first one this past June. We will hold the next one this coming June, and we will add on a 2-day workshop just for the innovation districts and charters to be able to work through the changes that we will talk through in the working group. And then we will provide access to online modules from several national partners to deepen the learning for your staff around college and career readiness. And we will be providing stipends for qualifying staff who are participating in the conference and the workshop, and then substitute coverage for participation in the working group during the school year. So timeline. Everyone who is a part of the working group will be asked to sign a 5-year MOU. And the reason that we are asking for 5 years, one of the strengths of Gear Up was the length of time to really be able to dive into the work and to implement and to see the change happen. We all know that change doesn't happen in 1 year. And so we don't want to try to make a commitment that in 1 year we're going to pull off a miracle. We want to take the time to learn, to engage in the conversation, to be able to make changes and tweaks as necessary, and to understand what it really takes to do this well and to do it correctly, and then to be able to scale it. So we are asking for those who are willing to make that commitment. We recognize that things may shift as we go through 5 years. A lot happens over 5 years, but on the front end that you at least are willing to make that commitment so that we have the space to be able to do the necessary learning. All of this work and support will be provided over the course of those 5 years. So I see a lot of folks are asking the question about the student supports and whether those will go away if you're not part of this. They will not go away. This will be an expansion so that you will be able to, for those who are part of the collaborative, we will be paying for it so that you have it available for all of the students in those grades. If you are not part of the innovation districts and charters, you will be able to continue to implement the way that you have currently. It won't change any of that. This is just a way to be able to expand it to more students, but it will not take it away from what you have been doing in the past. What will DOE be committing? In addition to facilitating all of this and providing the 2 staff persons to help support you on the ground with coordination and implementation, we will also be paying for the buses for the college tours and for the expanded work for junior achievement and Stand By Me, and for the coaching and professional development. As the group identifies additional supports, we are committing to finding the resources to be able to do that as feasible. The community partners are committing to participating in the working group and attending the summer workshop, as well as providing the services to the students. And then the districts will be committing to identifying a team. We're going to call that your Delaware Student Success Collaborative team. And that team will be representative of your district and your school and your key stakeholders. And you'll have a small group of 5 that will be part of that will be part of the working group. And that will vary depending on your size. You may not need 8, but up to 8. You just want to prioritize having diverse perspectives on your team. And they will be part of the working group. And then for the summer workshop, you can add an additional 5 individuals to come for that training and that conversation as we are working through your plans. And so those individuals would be a part of that working group each month, and we would expect them to be able to be there consistently. So a little more detail around what the district teams are going to be asked to do. In addition to that working group with the monthly meetings, they will be participating in the summer 2-day workshop and the conference, and they will commit to doing the work to update their post-secondary advisement plans to integrate the practices identified through the working group conversations, and then engaging in the feedback loop with the working group on the learning of how that is working. Who asked that question? Sam, that's a great question. I want to make sure everyone gets the answer. So Sam asked the question of, will districts who are not identified as the innovation districts be able to benefit from the work through regular updates? Yes, absolutely. Because this is all about learning, we hope to be able to find a variety of ways to share that learning, whether it's through cadre, newsletters, or spotlights over the course of those 5 years. And we believe the dates are going to be the week of June 16th for the summer. We have not yet set dates for the working group meetings because we want to see who's participating and schedule based on availability and try and get a standard date that will work. How to apply. So you'll see the website here, all of the materials that we are going over, and we will walk you through the application and the rubric in a moment, are available on the website. And we will ask you to submit that application as PDF to Karen no later than 4:30 on December 19th. As I said, it's only 3 questions, so we'll walk you through that in a moment. As we get questions from you, we'll take the questions from today's webinar and start an FAQ document that will be on the website as well. And if you email us questions between now and December 12th, we'll continue to update the frequently asked questions document. All right, so I'm going to, on the screen, switch to the application itself. So the application is a Word document that you can download, save, and type directly into. We just ask that when you send it to us, send it as a PDF. We would ask that you would, just so that it doesn't get too long, keep it at 12-point font, single space. Please make sure that when you save it, you are including the name of your district or charter in the title of the document so that we can keep track of of each document. And then we also would ask that you include a cover letter. It does not have to be lengthy. It's just an opportunity for you, outside of the application questions, to share why you are excited to join the collaborative and what any additional context that you feel we need to know as we think about the diversity that you will add to the conversation. We won't be evaluating the cover letter. It's just any additional context that you feel we should consider when we are selecting the districts and charters. So again, the deadline for submission is 4:30 p.m. December 19th to Karen Keegan. So you'll see the first part of the application is a school profile. Every page, we ask that you write the name of your district or charter so that if pages get separated, we're able to put things back together. And in the school profile, please indicate which county you're in, and that really is for the sake of diversity as we are looking at how to put the pieces together. For those of you who are in comprehensive districts where you have multiple middle schools and or high schools, you have the opportunity to identify more than one pair, but we ask that you prioritize because, as again, we're looking for to put together as diverse a group as possible, and we only have room for up to 8 districts. So as we look at student numbers and we look at how the spread is, we may not be able to pick both of your pairs if you identify more than one. So please consider that as you complete the table here. Additional information that, again, does not won't be evaluated, but helps us in looking for the diversity of the group. A little bit of information just to know whether or not you already have an advisory period in place and how you're using it, and for which students, and some of your purpose behind it, what resources you have in terms of your counseling team supporting college and career readiness. So do you have counselors that are dedicated to either being work-based learning or college counseling, or are those duties spread across your counselors? And how does that look in your middle school and your high school separately? So we're not going to use this as part of the scoring process, just for information about your district and your schools.
Review the diversity.
That's where I am right now. And so then for the demographics, this again gives us information about your schools so that we can look at it. So this school profile, I think Sharon asked the question about the diversity. The school profile is what gives us tells us the diversity. So we are looking at geographic diversity, type of school diversity, so comprehensive, VOTEC, charter. We are looking at size of school, and we are looking at resources within the school. And so this profile will give us that information so that as we are looking at, here are the schools that have the strongest applications, how we want to create and select the final 8. This will give us that information to try and create as much of a mix as possible. Lastly, please make sure you put your contact information here so that we are able to follow up with you. And then we have the 3 prompts that we're asking you to respond to. This is just so you'll have a prompt and then area for you to be able to type in your response. There's no required length. We just ask that you be as detailed and concise as possible. We're not asking for anything beyond 4 or 5 pages, if that. So you can think of maybe 1 page per prompt. Is probably all you'll truly need to be able to effectively answer the question. The first prompt, and I'm just going to read these and then kind of talk through what we're looking through. There is a rubric that I'll open up in a moment. The first prompt is the focus areas of this Delaware Student Success Collaborative include increasing equitable access for students to develop educational and career goals and to build the knowledge to succeed in those goals. The second, increasing family engagement to assist students in developing their career and educational goals. Those focus areas were identified because based on the feedback we've heard with developing Gear Up and in looking at the district plans, those are the areas where the greatest levels of support are needed for us as a state. And so we want to use the time together to really dive deeply into those 2 areas in particular to ensure that we are strengthening our work there. The ideal, innovative district and charters have a deep understanding of the challenges to achieve those 2 things and how to achieve success for every student in those focus areas in their context. And they are willing to bring lessons learned to the working group. So the question you would respond to, first, describe how these issues have surfaced in your district or charter environment. And second, what lessons learned will you bring to the group? And so that you can see it side by side, I'm going to show you the rubric. So the rubric will be evaluating your response to question A and B for prompt number 1. And so you'll see, I'll just focus on the exceeds part. What we're looking for really is that you have a good understanding of your district or charter environment and you're able to articulate what's leading to challenges for students as they're entering 12th grade, not knowing what their goals are, not understanding or having a good sense of what the opportunities are for them, maybe not having a clear plan. What are the root causes behind that? What are the potential opportunities for change? And and then understanding the differences between the role that people play versus the role that policies play in solving those problems. And so that's what we're looking for in question A in the ideal response, and that there's some data and evidence to support your response. Please don't feel like you need to pull all of your data. We're just looking for some quantitative data to back up what you're saying in your narrative. It does not have to be extensive. Question B, what lessons learned will you bring to the group? really looking to understand what you're willing to bring to the conversation and where you are in your learning of this issue, and whether you've done some research, whether you have had these conversations within your district or charter, what evidence you've had in being able to potentially start doing some of this work, and how you're able to articulate that and how you would share that with the group. So that's the exceeds. We're not expecting that everyone has figured this out, or we wouldn't be doing the work. But if you've already made some attempts, whether they were successful or not, we would love to understand what you've learned from having started that work. And so that is the first prompt. The second prompt is around readiness for success. So the first one was shared understanding and knowledge. What are you bringing into the group? And how do you contribute to the conversation? Readiness for success. Are you, as a district, ready to implement change? And do you have the systems and supports in place to be able to do that? So the prompt is, the collaborative requires innovation districts and charters to have an atmosphere ready for culture transformation. Shifting from a system that prepares students for either college or career to one that ensures every student is able to connect their career goals to an educational goal requires transformation. As the working group identifies practices to increase equitable access, family engagement, innovation districts and charters will be expected to integrate these practices into their plans and to implement them with fidelity. You'll have the support of the working group and the coaching partners as well, and we will have, we don't expect perfection in year one, but we expect the willingness to do the work. So the question there is, what evidence from either your post-secondary advisement plans that you submitted this summer, your district feedback report that we sent to you earlier this school year, and or existing policies exist to demonstrate your readiness to integrate practices and push for transformation within your school? So here we're really looking for how demonstrate to us that you're ready to do the work, and how, based on what evidence in your school and the work that you've already done, can we see that you are ready to make this type of transformation? There's the will and the skill question, essentially, is what we've got here. So for exceeds, when you look at the rubric, we're looking at an understanding of how you have evaluated your post-secondary advisement plans, your feedback report, and what next steps you've identified as a district on your own. Do you have an understanding of your current practices and policies and where they lead to gaps that you would like to explore? And in what ways have you engaged your staff to evaluate your current culture and start to identify ways to bridge those gaps? So that is the second question. And then the third one is your overall commitment. So the prompt is, the goal of the collaborative is to create a space for collective learning as we advocate for a system that will enable every student to access the skills and knowledge necessary to be successful in their career and educational goals. Keeping in mind that this working group will essentially become the advocates of this work and will work to help spread the knowledge across the state. As a member, so the question you'll respond to is, as a member of the collaborative, what specific knowledge and skills do you hope to learn from being a member of the collaborative? So this is really just to get a sense of what are you hoping to gain from this, and what and will this, so that we can get a sense of, will the collaborative meet your needs as well? There is no exceeds expectation on this question, because there's no way to exceed in terms of your overall commitment. So there's just a meets and a below. Really just looking for how detailed and specific you are able to answer that question, and what thought you've already put into what you hope to gain as you come in as a part of the working group. And so that's a fairly simple one in terms of the rubric. And I'm trying to pause in between as Karen's keeping up with the chat to see if there are questions. And that essentially is the application. The only other piece is, and we went over this in the PowerPoint, but this just reiterates the commitment that we're asking for from the participating districts and charters. So we ask that you sign this up front so that we know that everyone understands what the commitment is to participate before we select. So at this point, I am going to just pause so that Karen can review questions, and just remind you that we are recording all of this, and all of these documents are on our website, the DelawareStudentSuccess.org/DSS-collaborative. So on there, you will see the application, what is the collaborative, the rubric that we will be using to evaluate the applications, the presentations, more information about partners, and then we will be adding the FAQ under the resources after today's webinar.
Sharon says, when you say that every 7th to 10th grader will get to go on 2 college tours, is that all in the same year, or is it over 4 years?
Over 4 years. So we will work to create this magic matrix to figure out the logistics of how that will work.
I think we've gotten all the questions so far.
All right, I think that we have been able to respond to most of the questions in chat. We will sit here for a few more moments in case you are processing and have any additional questions. Again, you can email us questions, send them to Karen Keegan, and we will add them to the frequently asked questions document on the website so that you have them available as you're working on the application. We do hope that you are interested in wanting to join us on this journey, and we are excited to review your applications and get started. Thank you.
Just a reminder of the due date for the grant.
December 19th, 4:30.
Thank you. I tried to write it down fast, but I missed it. Thank you.
No problem. Did you see the question about when things are ready? Someone asked when everything is ready. Everything is posted on the website right now, so it's live for you to access.